It's been 2 years since we've had an NAB show in Las Vegas. So much has changed, and yet not much has changed. Chad and I drove out on Saturday evening to try to make it to a vendor dinner, which ended up not happening. Sunday morning was the Nutella Users Group meeting, or NUG as it's called. Last time we did this, we were exhausted. I had coffee this morning, did you?
No.
No, he had his Red Bull.
Pretty good. I have this for later. But
This is his third one of the day so far.
No, when
it's only
24
8
hours
o'clock.
passes, that one doesn't count anymore that you had last night.
This is where they talk about some interesting new concepts and ideas for transmitters, content delivery, HD radio, and more. It was deep inside the conference space of the Flamingo Hotel. We eventually found signs leading us down very long corridors. We ended up getting there fairly early and picked up our swag from the table. This is the return of the Nutella Users Group. Every NAB, the Sunday right before the floor opens, Nutella puts on a special presentation for its users, and they provide a wonderful continental breakfast and lunch. This will be the first time since 2019 that we've done this, so we'll see. We'll see if everybody's rusty at this. You ready for this, Chad?
Ready?
He thinks he's ready. The program started with some Engineer of the Year awards from Radio World magazine that have happened in the last couple of years. Then the big topic of the NUG was about cloud delivery of programming. This was a very exciting concept. Before I get too far, let me explain that I don't believe that the internet will ever be as reliable or stable to make this a primary method of program delivery. But as a disaster recovery concept, makes the hamster run a little faster in my head. This whole cloud delivery concept was originally intended to solve the audio time slip between the analog signal and the HD1 signal. For years, that has been a problem for stations that transmit in HD. If you don't align the audio exactly when the receiver blends, you have dropouts or time jumps. It's frustrating for the listener when they're in a fringe or coverage-challenged areas. So the concept is that the automation is running on a service like Amazon Web Services or AWS, and it sends its audio to another instance of AWS that is running audio processing, which sends its audio to another instance, which is running the HD exporter software. Basically, this makes the HD signal. And then that sends the combined analog and HD signal over the internet straight to the transmitter, which then takes that data and makes RF. Really, this is nothing too new, except that everything is done virtually in the cloud. But radio has been doing this with physical on-premise boxes. And what's new is that we're running this in a data center somewhere else. But cloud delivery wasn't the only thing that Nutella talked about. They announced a new transmitter. The new VX series is a huge improvement to the ratio of size and weight to RF power. Okay, let me pause here for just a moment and explain why this is so important. When I first started in radio, the transmitter that we were using to make just under 1 kilowatt was about the size of a large mini fridge. When we installed the VS series of transmitter a few years later, that reduced down to about 3 rack units or 6 inches in height, but the weight was enormous. Amplifiers weigh a lot, and there was the depth of the transmitter. The VS series transmitters were almost 40 inches deep. That meant you had to have a very deep rack to put these in. This new VX series transmitter only weighs 24 pounds and is only 20 inches deep. This is a huge savings in weight and size. This new VX series is an analog-only transmitter, leaving the VS series for those who are doing HD radio. Okay, back to the NUG. The new Advanced User Interface, or AUI, was demonstrated and appears to be on the cusp of being released for general availability really soon. The AUI is the interface that you can control and configure the transmitter from your computer. Used to be made with Flash, but then Flash was shown the door by the computer industry. The new AUI is built on HTML5 and can run on almost any device, phone, tablet, and computer. We ended on some tips and tricks presented by the one and only Jeff Welton, and at one point, he asked the question of what else should be in the engineer's toolbox. There were many suggestions from the serious to the hilarious, but pretty much all of them are things that would be very useful at a remote transmitter site. Afterwards, Nutella provided a tasty lunch, and it was off to the show floor. This year, the NAB show opened the show floor on a Sunday, and we discovered the reason was because the NFL draft was also in town and was happening on Thursday, which was usually the last day of the show. Unfortunately, getting our badges for the show floor wasn't as easy as expected. NAB, I'm so disappointed. So disappointed. First, our lift dropped us off on the opposite side of the entrance, so we pretty much literally walked all the way around the convention center. 2, your badge pickup was not very well signed, so we tried to get it we were at the Nutella users group, and they had a satellite place there, and you could pick up your badge. Well, it wasn't there. They moved it without telling us. So anyways, then tried to get it here at the convention center, and it was hard to find it. Anyways, now we're here. Okay, let's go inside. After we checked in and got our badges, we walked over to the new West Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center. This is an amazing building, but it was such a long walk. When you arrive at the entry for the West Hall, you're greeted by a massive 5-story tall video wall. It was really impressive. Inside the show floor, we were greeted by a cloud service provider. As I said, cloud seemed to be the theme this year. This first day was kind of spent mostly walking around and looking at things, getting a game plan on who to visit, and maybe pop in to say hello to some vendors. We averaged about 8 miles of walking a day on the show floor. In different spots around the show floor, presentations were happening demonstrating new technology or concepts for delivering content. There are so many vendors and manufacturers, I really should call them exhibitors, and sometimes their company name doesn't really tell you what they do, and even their booth displays are a little vague on what they do. One cool thing is to be able to get up close to something that is on top of one of our towers, like an antenna. I'm not a tower climber, so I will never see our antennas up close and personal unless we're pulling them off the tower. I always make a stop by the Burke Technologies booth to see examples of custom remote control views. Burke makes the remote control software and hardware that we use for our sites, and one software product they have is called Autopilot. I have that running in my office, and I can observe and control all the transmitters we have from one central location. One thing we did notice was that everyone had smaller booths this year, if they were even there at all. Our automation vendor, Wide Orbit, usually had a huge booth that is encompassing their radio automation, TV automation, traffic services, everything. But this year they were tucked in a corner with maybe a double-wide booth that is maybe the 10th of the size of what they've had before. Who didn't have a small booth was Blackmagic Design. They had the same sized booth as in years past. They've become a powerhouse in the industry for their lower cost cameras and switchers. They had massive advertisements pasted up all over the convention center. It was almost as if the NAB was being sponsored totally by Blackmagic Design. One really cool thing that we looked at while at the Blackmagic booth was their Web Presenter 4K. We're looking to upgrade our pan-tilt zoom cameras in the station's talk studio. Our switcher is already 4K, so adding this Web Presenter 4K would allow us to stream in 4K. Why? Why not? Most of the camera manufacturers had a scene set up to demonstrate how their cameras look and work. They hire some local actors and they just run a scene on a small little stage and you can test out the cameras. Canon even had a little musical group playing at their booth. that you could test cameras on. They even had a huge display of all their lenses. I can't imagine how much money was in that display case or how heavy that display case is. Esports was a big player this year as well. There was a demonstration of a couple of head-to-head gamers with an announcer and a producer. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's gonna get credited with the save. Michael with the huge save there, big defensive play.
Adobe had a large booth, but still smaller than in years past. They had demonstrations and presentations going all day long on their stage. I did learn something about the software that I use to edit these videos, and I'll probably be using that new feature going forward. There were a lot of interviews happening all over the show, the entire time of the show. We stopped over at Broadcasters General Store's booth and looked at some of the exciting things that they are showing. We've ordered almost all of our equipment through BGS for the last 20 years. They've been very good to us and have great prices, and that's what I was talking about for vendors, the other video. Telos Alliance wasn't at the show this year, and they had some equipment on display at BGS. This is the Quasar Console. It's a fun and functional console that runs audio over IP. I think we have a proposal into management to see if we can upgrade our consoles. BGS was also showing some clocks that allow you to customize them, and I think those too might be in the future here at the station. And they were also showing off some new lower profile on-air lights. There was a good number of younger and seasoned attendees. Even your favorite video game plumber made an appearance.
Hug a plumber day.
Emergency alerting was a bit of an undertone again. ATSC 3.0 is supposed to be able to carry emergency information over it, and FEMA's there with a much smaller booth than in years past, showing off wireless emergency alerts. Then it was the miscellaneous things that you find at NAB, like camera cars, lights, rigs to help carry heavy cameras, microphones, actually lots of microphones, random people walking around with interesting tech. Commerx was demonstrating their new product called Gaggle. It's a service that lets you use a Bricklink or access to bring in up to 5 different remote users, and everyone gets a mix minus. This is great for morning shows or group interviews. There were several companies showing off virtual sets, which are basically LED walls and like an LED floor. NAB for Engineers wouldn't be complete without the annual SBE member meeting and reception. There were drawings for prizes and reports on how the organization is doing from a national perspective. And at the reception that followed the meeting, I was able to talk to some other engineers and had the privilege of meeting several of you. So, hello Nick, Chris, Gary, Wayne, and others who I met, and I'm sorry if I don't remember your name. Please forgive me. I remember faces. NAB is always a whirlwind of information and people. So that's NAB 2022. There was more stuff there than I could get around to, but this was just a small taste of the event and of the items that were of interest to me and maybe you. Thanks for watching, being a part of this channel. I really appreciate you. If you like this video, click on the like button, and if you want to see more about being a broadcast engineer, subscribe. I will also have some small interview videos of some exhibitors with some products that I'm pretty sure are interesting to you. I thought they were cool. And you can find them here on this playlist, right there. I also have a candid conversation with some great friends of mine in the members section. So if you're not a member, join and help support me. Okay, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next time.